Welcome to the M1 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Sadu, and today we're going to be talking about sex, sexual function, and libido. So this is important stuff. Now, why do we have a sex drive to begin with? The number one reason is to advance our species. So this is why all creatures procreate, because we want to get as far into the future as possible, and the only way to do that is by making babies. So we also have sex for pleasure, of course, because that's why birth control methods were developed. We want to be able to enjoy sex without the consequences of that potentially resulting in a child every time. Now, when most of us think about sex drive, we think about testosterone for men and estrogen for women, and that's not actually the whole picture. So, for example, estrogen is extremely important in sexual function for males, not just females. So if a man doesn't have adequate estrogen levels for whatever reason, erectile dysfunction is extremely common. So one real-world example of this is when some men use injectable testosterone or anabolic steroids. It's very common to use something called an aromatase inhibitor, because in this case, if too much testosterone is in the system, it can begin to convert to estrogen, and the enzyme that's responsible for that conversion is something called aromatase. For the case of a male, if you have too much estrogen in the system, it can result in problems such as gynecomastia, which is a fancy way of saying breast tissue development. So these folks take aromatase inhibitors quite often, but these drugs can essentially be too effective and lower estrogen too much, and that results in all sorts of issues, one big one being sexual function. Estrogen is responsible for a host of other things, bone health, joint health. It plays an important role in mood, and the list goes on. And in women, we all know estrogen is important for the reason I just mentioned, as well as sexual function, because it plays an important role in lubrication. So estrogen is crucial for both men and women when it comes to sex, and the same goes for testosterone. The primary difference is that the optimal amounts are going to differ between men and women. So men are going to have more testosterone and less estrogen, and women are going to have more estrogen and less testosterone. Now, we've all got our own sort of taste or preference when it comes to what we're sexually attracted to. So, for example, some people prefer darker features, dark hair, darker eyes, darker skin, and then some folks like lighter features, so lighter hair, lighter skin, lighter eyes. And obviously this is a sliding scale, and we also have personality traits that we're attracted to, and someone's general energy and or confidence or lack thereof. But the vast majority of us do seem to be attracted to a lot of the same things. So for example, we all seem to be naturally attracted to healthy looking skin and hair and nice teeth and fit people, so good body composition, things like posture. We're much more attracted to folks that stand up tall and seem confident. We like high energy. We much prefer people with a positive outlook versus a negative one. Essentially, what we're attracted to is a thriving human, or in other words, signs of a resilient and healthy individual. But why? Because all of these things are corollary signs to survival. Someone who is healthy, strong, confident, and generally positive is far more likely to thrive in the world than someone who is unhealthy, weak, lacks self-esteem, and has a negative attitude. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, remember, we want to advance our species. So if you had to partner up with someone and raise kids with them, are you going to choose the healthy person or the unhealthy person? It's a no-brainer, right? Now, it seems to be that we're actually genetically wired to be able to identify signs of a healthy organism. So, like we talked about before, skin, teeth, hair, body comp, mental health, so attitude, even symmetry. We love symmetrical faces and bodies. So essentially, balance from right to left as opposed to asymmetry. Now, what does what we're attracted to have to do with anything with boosting your libido? If you're listening to this episode, you're clearly interested in having sex, and all the same things that lead to a healthy libido will make it more likely for you to get laid. Now, what do I mean? If you have healthy skin, teeth, nails, hair, you carry some muscle, you're strong, you're lean, you're going to have a better sex drive because you're healthy. And you're also more likely to attract a partner or partners by being the person that's thriving. So not only will your sex drive be higher, you're going to have a better chance of exercising it. No pun intended there. Now, we touched on hormones before, but how do you balance your hormonal status? Here are the 4 things that you need to do. Favor single and minimal ingredient whole foods that you cook yourself. And if you're overweight, I'd recommend leaning out to a more healthful body weight. And if you're underweight, I'd recommend gaining until you reach a healthful body weight. Being overweight and being underweight will impact libido and sexual function. So the overweight scenario is likely fairly straightforward because being overweight is a big stressor and it impacts things like heart rate, blood pressure, likelihood of disease, etc. But on the underweight side, from an evolutionary perspective, it actually signifies food shortage. Meaning, if you don't have food to feed yourself, you definitely don't have enough calories to feed an additional child. So from an evolutionary angle, it makes sense to shut down or at least suppress sex drive because the external conditions, calorie availability, aren't fit to feed another mouth. So when it comes to nutrition and libido, we don't want to be too thin, but we also don't want to be overweight. We want to be right in between there. That spot, that in-between spot is going to vary depending on the individual, but subjectively, how you look, feel, and perform will let you know. Meaning, you're going to feel great, you're going to be stoked on how you look, and you're going to be performing super well. So whether it's carrying out everyday tasks, hitting the gym, or going for a hike, you're going to be thriving. On the movement front, super important for overall health for so many reasons, but a couple ones that stand out when it comes to sexual function and libido specifically are blood pressure and heart rate. So for example, how do Viagra and Cialis work? They increase blood flow, meaning if you have high blood pressure, which by definition is impaired blood flow, you're setting yourself up to have sexual function problems arise. Also, what pumps blood throughout your body? Your heart. So if you have a high resting heart rate, your heart is working a lot harder than it needs to, which has a big cost to it. Also, I'll mention this is not exclusive to men. Lubrication for women is also heavily reliant on blood flow. So ladies, you want to have a healthy heart and proper blood pressure for overall health, of course, but also for sexual function. Specifics movement-wise, I'd recommend hitting 8 to 10,000 sets per day as a baseline must. Also, getting a couple sessions, say maybe 2 to 3, where your heart rate is up a little higher is a good idea. So you could do some sprints, hill sprints, or a spin class, or actually cycle outside, something that gets your blood pumping. Weight training is also awesome because being strong and building a little muscle will only improve your overall health and your sense of well-being, confidence, energy, all that good stuff. Sleep. So no area of the body goes untouched when it comes to sleep, meaning everything is going to get better when you're sleeping properly, and everything is going to get worse when you're not. And of course, this includes sexual function and libido. So for example, we talked about blood pressure and heart rate before. If you get a great sleep, the following day you're going to have a lower baseline heart rate and blood pressure, and the opposite is the case if you have a poor sleep. Now, having said that, I'm not crazy about focusing on one single night, but rather zooming out and looking at the big picture. We need to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, and the easiest way to figure out how much sleep you personally need to wake up feeling rested and alert all day is by going to bed and waking up without an alarm. So if you've got to wake up for work in the morning and you need an alarm, it's pretty likely that you aren't getting enough sleep because in an ideal world, you wake up naturally after completing your last sleep cycle. You're also going to feel better upon waking up because an alarm could potentially wake you up mid-cycle when you normally wouldn't wake up, and it could take you longer to come to, in a sense, or just get your wits about you because your body and your brain are like, the fuck did you wake me up for? Things are going great. Now, how do you wake up without an alarm? You go to bed earlier. I wish I had a different answer for you, but it's all about priorities and trade-offs. One less show on Netflix could be the difference between feeling amazing and feeling not so amazing. Also, for the men out there, you should be waking up with an erection in the morning. This is actually a really good sign of sexual health. You don't have to get fancy with testing or anything like that. Pay attention to whether you're waking up excited or not. Moving on to stress. So stress and libido have a tipping scale like relationship. So when stress is up, libido is down, and when stress is down, libido is up typically. I love viewing this stuff through an evolutionary lens because it just makes so much sense to me, and I think it inherently makes sense to most other folks as well. But if you're super stressed out, it only makes sense that libido decreases because, again, a child isn't the right fit for a super stressful external situation, whether it be calorie availability, mental stressors, emotional traumas, physical distress. All of these things aren't conducive to offspring surviving and thriving. So stress is a really important factor when it comes to libido. Now, how you de-stress, relax, and calm yourself is going to depend on you as an individual, but first and foremost, you want to button up nutrition, movement, and sleep. That just makes sense because they're huge inputs with a lot of bang for your buck. After that, here are 5 things I like to use with my nutritional coaching clients. Number 1 is walk. So walking does fall under the movement umbrella, but it's also a massive de-stressor in itself. It slows you down, it's really healthy, and ideally you do it outside so you get some nature time, some sunlight, definitely light exposure. It's wins all around. Number 2 is learning. So learning is a great way to de-stress because it feeds your brain. It has you feel accomplished, it gives you some purpose. It can also fill you with curiosity because you might learn about a new topic and that might have you want to learn about another topic and enter the snowball effect. Number 3 is writing. I am a big fan of writing or journaling or whatever you want to call it. And I just look at this like taking out the garbage mentally. If you've got things going on in your mind, instead of letting them spin in your brain and constantly revisiting them over and over, get it out on the page. It's just energy spinning around in your head, so release it. Also, I'll mention, what you write doesn't have to make sense because if you've ever stopped and really listened to your thoughts, they're kind of crazy. And they often don't make sense and they just jump all over the place. So don't worry about getting it right when you're writing, just write. Number 4 is chatting. Solid chats with friends and family are so therapeutic and just all around helpful. It's vital to get feedback from people because everyone's perspective is different. And so folks can show you different sides of an issue or a potential problem that you haven't quite thought of in that way. So it's really cool to get others' input. Number 5 is sex itself. I know we're talking about it, we're talking about sexual function, but having sex itself is an amazing way to de-stress, whether it be with another person or yourself. It is a really healthy behavior with literally 0 downsides. Everybody wins. Quick little note on porn. I personally don't watch porn and I haven't in years because I found it impacted my sex life in a negative way. Everybody's different and if it works for you, great, but I've just found the novelty of porn just to be too much, and I found that it just made my real life sexual experiences more enjoyable when I stopped watching it. Now, that is a personal anecdote that I've found to be helpful for myself, but to each their own, of course. Confidence and or self-esteem are 2 factors that play a huge role in libido because the more comfortable you are in your body and with your body, the more comfortable you're going to be in sex, which is going to lead to a better experience. So I've seen this so many times with my clients where they are looking better and they're feeling better, and as a result, their libido improves and their sex life improves. So just feeling good and being comfortable in your own skin plays a huge part when it comes to the sexual experience as a whole. Now, one really important note on drugs. Drugs impact libido and sexual function big time. And the most common one is alcohol. So booze does an amazing job of just straight up tanking sex hormones. So the rule I like to follow around alcohol is drink just enough to enhance your sex life, but not enough to impair it. So that includes acutely. So don't drink so much in one night that your performance is impaired. And then also don't drink so much over time that it starts to deteriorate your health. Now, what about things like going to a naturopath to quote unquote balance your hormones for sexual function and libido? The first steps are always buttoning up nutrition, movement, sleep, and stress management. So button these factors up first, really commit to them, I'd say for a solid 2 to 3 months, and then potentially think about alternative measures. Because if you start to take a bunch of supplements or drugs that may or may not help, but you don't change your lifestyle, assuming the supplements or drugs helped, as soon as you stop taking them, you're going to regress to where you were. And we see this all the time around weight loss. Someone loses a bunch of weight and then they slowly slip back to what they were doing prior to losing the weight, and it comes back on. So lifestyle change is the tried and true way to thrive. I'm not saying that supplements or drug intervention should never play a part, but for the vast majority of people, lifestyle is the way to go because it addresses the root of the issues, and you also don't get the potential downsides or side effects from taking supplements or drugs. There is no free lunch in physiology, it's all trade-offs. As we start to wrap up here, if you're doing what you need to do in order to look, feel, and perform awesome, you are going to likely have great sexual function and libido. Simple as that. So get as healthy as you possibly can via healthy lifestyle habits on a consistent basis, and you'll be able to enjoy sex in whatever way you'd like. If you're interested in personalized one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can head over to n1fitness.com/coaching or just click the link in the show notes below. Also follow me up on Instagram at N1Fitness and friend me on Facebook at Marcus Sadu. Thanks so much for listening, guys, and I will catch you on the next episode. See ya.